Welcome to the second lecture in Module 10, and this is letter B, a new relationship. You may remember that in the previous lecture I gave you sort of a summary of the entire class and also of how the biblical theological section of the class highlighted two major metaphors that seem to be more central than any others in Scripture. One of them is the metaphor of history, how Jesus Christ relives the life, the experience of Adam and Israel and even ourselves. Then we talked a bit more about that in the previous lecture, and now we want to get to the second metaphor, which is the legal metaphor. Once again, there's a reading that goes with this, and I will allow that reading to bring many details to you. I want to just summarize some things here in this lecture and really highlight what I think are the crucial elements. First of all, let me remind you that the legal categories of Scripture are not there to make us miserable. They're not there to stifle our freedom. They are there for relationship. That the legal categories provide security in a relationship. The marriage contract provides some security that person isn't going to walk away the first time you have a fight or the first time they see somebody else that may be attractive to them or something. That you need more security than simply the whims of the moment. Oh, I'm in love with you, yeah. Okay, but what if you wake up tomorrow and you don't feel quite so much in love? So what then? That's where commitment comes in. That's where some kind of contract, covenant becomes very important to providing security in a relationship. I think the reason that the legal context for salvation is so important is that human beings by nature don't have a lot of security. By nature they struggle with being confident that God really loves them, confident that they truly are saved. I find so many people in various churches who just don't have a real solid sense of where they stand with God. And the purpose of the legal metaphor is to say, look, God is consistent. God doesn't just wake up on the wrong side of the bed and decide that you're out. You see? The relationship with God is not that easily broken. God is like a spouse who's committed to the relationship. That's why the story of Hosea is in there. God says to Hosea, I want your life to be an example of what committed relationship is all about, first of all, and second of all, an example of what I'm like, the character of God. What is the character of God like? He's like a prophet who marries a woman that has tendencies toward adultery, tendencies toward non-commitment. And he marries her because God asks him to. And things go well for first. They have a son with each other, and then there's two children from somebody else. And he names those children with not words. Not my kid. See, the one is not pitied and the other is not my people. So Hosea is beginning to realize there's a real problem. And if you take the language of the Hebrews seriously, she actually went into prostitution. She was so sexually addictive that simply finding somebody in the bar every night wasn't good enough for her. She needed more and more in some way. And the tragedy of the story is that Hosea buys her services from time to time just to be close to her, just to have some relationship with her and try to win her back. He buys time, if you will, with his own wife. It's a tragic story. But the purpose of that story is to say, God's committed to us. When we're in relationship with God, it's a committed relationship on His part. We may not be committed. We may mess it up. But God's committed. And, we live through our lives and we're saying, well, I messed up yesterday, so maybe God doesn't love me today. The book of Hosea says, nonsense. Hosea's wife not only committed adultery, not only had kids by another man, she went out and sold the very services that she owed to Hosea. She sold to others. Sold her body. Allowed her husband to buy time to try to win her back. That's what God is like. You say, when I mess up, I'm done. No, you're not done. God's committed. He's committed to a spouse that messes up. He's committed to a spouse that becomes a prostitute. He's committed to a spouse that divorces him with malice. And he's still over there buying time, if that's what it'll take to be with us. That's the metaphor. How is God going to tell us that he's committed to that degree? One of the ways that he does that, one of the most powerful ways, is the legal metaphor. God submits to his own laws. He submits to the covenant he makes with us. He is faithful to that covenant even when we're not. In a real sense, the message that is trying to come through here is not that it's hard to be saved, but in a real sense, it's hard to be lost. You got to do a lot to separate God from your life. He just keeps coming back. He's relentless. He's a spouse that's relentless in his grace, relentless in his courtesy, relentless in his love. And we're the ones pushing him away. Will there be people lost? Yes. But not because God isn't relentless. They're lost because they followed the natural inclinations of sin on another path that took them away from God. They weren't willing to confess they were on the wrong path. They weren't willing to acknowledge that the problem in the relationship was theirs. And over time, each act becomes easier to do again until finally God is just not part of your life. Not because he doesn't want to be there. So the story of Hosea is a powerful story of how committed God is. And God illustrates that from Genesis to Revelation. In all 66 books of the Bible, God is illustrating his commitment. People tend to be afraid that the mercy of God might run out. Well, Hosea says it won't. But people still worry about that. How are you going to get through to them? Well, I think we all believe that the justice of God isn't going to run out. That God will be fair, that God will protect those who need protection. He will be just, he will be right, because that's who he is. And the legal concept says you can count on God because saving you is the right thing. Saving you is the just thing. Saving you is the legal thing for God to do. It's convincing those of us that have a hard time to believe that being saved could be the right thing. That somehow it's wrong for the universe. And God is saying, look, in Jesus Christ, I did whatever it took to settle any legal liabilities for the things that I want to do for you. When I save you, when I offer you my righteousness, when I give you that perfect history of Jesus Christ, what I'm doing is absolutely moral, it's absolutely legal, it's the right thing to do, and it is permanent, it is steady. God's justice is eternal. So, I think that that's extremely important for us because the ways that we look for life don't have a lot of security in them. In the reading, I talk about 3 ways that most people try to find self-worth. We all want to have a meaningful life. We all want to have a worth-filled life. But frankly, in our history, there's not a whole lot to feel good about. There's not a whole lot to feel valuable about. We are costly. We mess things up. We squander resources. We squander time. And so it's hard to feel good about yourself when you're focused on your history. And an example is one of the ways we try to find worth is the bottom line approach. We try to find worth in what we have, the things that we have, the toys that we accumulate, the bank accounts that may be growing. It's why somebody with $50 billion needs more, because $50 billion didn't make them feel good enough. In fact, the more that you have, the less it's worth. If you can spend $300 million on a yacht, then anything that costs less than that isn't worth much at all to you. And even the yacht becomes not worth much after a while because it came so easily. You see, the more you have, the less money is worth. The poor can dream about becoming rich and think then their lives will be okay. But the rich know the bottom line approach doesn't work. And no matter how much you have, it's never enough to heal the void inside. So in the secular world, one of the major ways that people try to find worth doesn't work. It may work for a time. Things get tough. The tough go shopping. When you come home with those packages, it feels good. Next day, you're back where you were before. Doesn't last. Second way that people try to find life, find worth, is in their performance. You say, man, if I could be the best athlete, if I could be the best teacher, if I could be the best pastor, the best chaplain, whatever you want to call it, if I could be the best at something, then I'd be worth something. But as I point out in the reading, that doesn't last either. Even people at the top of their game can have a bad day. And even people at the top of their game will eventually get old, get tired, fall apart, die, you see. Even our best successes only feel good for a while. The performance approach, the self-development approach, it has value, but it doesn't last. It doesn't really resolve the problem. So a third way that people look for life is the esteem of others. And, I think about teenagers who fall in love for the first time, get Twitter-pated. It's so delightful to watch, and you see how the ugly duckling suddenly becomes a beautiful swan. Why? Because someone else says, you're valuable, you're beautiful, you're incredible, you are amazing. My life is just shining because you're around. And that really works. It really makes a difference. But the problem is, it too doesn't last. People move away. People change their minds. People divorce you. People die. And so even though those relationships can have a powerful impact on our lives, they often don't last. So they don't provide meaningful, lasting solution to the problem of human existence. But I think those who have been in a romantic relationship, those who have seen the joy that comes in life through deep and meaningful relationships, recognize there's something there. But there's also something missing. You see, the friends that we have are just as messed up as we are. So, in a real sense, the joy we get there is a bit false. The friends that we have usually don't love us the way we are. They love us the way they see us. They love the image that they have of us. They love the image of ourselves that we project to them. We mask some of the dark side of our nature. And so most of the people who love us, to some degree, love an image of us and not the real person. So to say that they truly love us as we are, that's pretty rare in this life. It requires knowing everything there is to know about us to truly love us, and that rarely happens. How many friends that you have that you could say anything about any aspect of your life, good, bad, or ugly, discuss it freely, receive their rebuke and stuff, and still love them? You still be in relationship with them. There's not many people like that. It's pretty rare. I think true intimacy is fairly rare in this life. But unless someone knows all about you, can you really trust that they love you as you are? And that they'll love you permanently? Because even if you do have the ideal relationship, that person could be dead tomorrow. And it's all gone. So what we really need to find value is a friend who has 4 characteristics. Number 1, he is truly valuable. Somebody, who's worth something by nature. And that means not human in the way that we know human, because all of us essentially have the same kind of history. But it's somebody with a pure history, somebody with a perfect history, somebody who has value inherent in themselves. Second, a friend who loves us just the way we are. We don't have to change in order to earn their love. 3, they know all about us. That means they're not going to change their mind when they find out something. There's no risk in the relationship. Well, if they find this out, now they're not going to be there. And it needs to be someone who lives forever. The only person I know of available to you and me that has all 4 characteristics is Jesus Christ. He is genuinely valuable. He made the entire universe. He made every planet, every star, every galaxy. He's more valuable than, BMWs, fancy houses and yachts. I mean, anything that we would put our value upon, he transcends all of that. He's truly valuable. He knows everything there's to know about us, yet loves us exactly the way we are. And he lives forever. Having died, he will not die again. That is the core basis of the gospel, that such a friend truly lives, Jesus Christ. There's a diagram in your reading, but I'd like to show it to you here just for a moment. So let me just pass around the podium here and bring this to the camera. But you will see this, I think, in the reading. It says the search for self-worth. And you can see that the bottom line approach is rooted in our relationship with the earth. We try to value ourselves by the things that we have. We can value ourselves in terms of performance, our relationship with ourselves, how we perform in relation to our own expectations. Or we can value ourselves in relation to others. If other people think I'm awesome, if awesome people think I'm awesome, then I must be awesome. But ultimately, self-worth is found only in God, that upward relationship. That is the place, a mighty act of God who loves us just the way we are. No matter what we've done, no matter where we've been, he knows all about us. Genuinely valuable, never die, loves us the way we are. That's the story of Jesus Christ. And that's the power of the gospel. That's the power of the Bible story, is it's not just any old story. But the reality is the Bible is the story that truly matters. It's how my life can be put back together, no matter how messed up it may be. It explains the great metaphors of the Bible. And those metaphors tell us, like God is the light. Imagine being in a dark cave and you can't see a thing for 10 days and suddenly you're brought outside and you can see colors and life again. Being trapped in a place where the air is really bad and then suddenly a window is open and this gust of fresh, pure air comes. Oh, you see. The bread of life, you're starving, you haven't eaten in 3 days and somebody gives you some fresh baked bread with a little butter on it and you say, oh man, that is what Jesus Christ is like. When you truly know the failure and disaster of your life, he's the bread of life. He's the light of life. Whatever metaphors you want to take, he is all of that. The good shepherd, the resurrection, the life, etc. This is what Jesus Christ is about. It explains the survival of Christianity. For thousands of years, people have found in Jesus Christ a life that they could not find anywhere else. They're willing to die for that life. You see? So this is the core of the gospel. And it's the legal side of the gospel is that God has committed himself, as you are, knowing all about you, valuable as he has committed himself to you permanently, legally. He's written it in stone. He's written it on paper. He's committed himself in any way he knows how to convince us, yes, our relationship with him is not in question. We are the only ones that can question that relationship. It provides assurance. Because the assurance that we have that our relationship with God is sound is not grounded in our performance. It's not grounded in what we have. It's not grounded in who we know. Our relationship with God is grounded in him, in his grace, in his blood, in his sacrifice for us, in the mighty acts of God. That's where our security is. And when your security is grounded in God, it doesn't waver. The only thing that wavers is us. And so God is seeking to reach out to us to convince us of who he is, that he is a gracious God, he is an accepting God. And when we take that in, we can have an assurance that provides a basis for radiant living, for turning away from sin, and so forth. Temptation, then, is not so much about right and wrong. It's not so much about, did you have ice cream or didn't you? Did you smoke or didn't you? Did you go here or didn't you? Yes, that's sin too. But the core of sin is finding some other way to value than Jesus Christ. When we seek value in accumulating things, when we seek value in our performance, and how easy that is, even for pastors and teachers and chaplains, that in our performance we seek to validate who we are. When we seek value in other human beings, it is so limited and it is so temporary. What are you worth? I guess if someone boiled down my body into fundamental chemicals, I might be worth $20 or $25, I think, is basically what the estimate is now. But as I work for a church, as a pastor, as people work various jobs, the average job in North America probably earns somewhere around, I think the median is about $50,000. All right, so if you have some skills, people value it more than your chemical value. So value is in the eyes of others to a large degree. Now, if you're a great athlete, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, something like that, people would value you in tens of millions of dollars. If you're somebody who has created software that runs on pretty much all computers, you might be worth tens of billions of dollars. You see, we tend to value people in terms of what they can do for us, in terms of these measures of who they are, but all of those are limited. The gospel is about someone who created the universe being willing to die for you. What kind of value does that put on you? Bill Gates couldn't come close. Tiger Woods couldn't come close. The reality is that the death of Jesus Christ says you are worth the universe to God. There's something about you that he would be willing to send his son for. That's the amazing story of the gospel. That's the Hosea commitment of God. To say, I'm willing to put it in writing, to go to any lengths to demonstrate that our relationship is good, that my commitment to you is unshakable. The only way you can get out of this relationship is like Gomer, to just go. You see? So, temptation, when it comes, is simply steering you away. When you're suffering with temptation, you ask yourself, why is my need not being met in Jesus Christ? Why am I buying these things? Is it because of a genuine need, or am I trying to feed something that's missing? Why am I getting another degree? Why am I lusting after this high-powered position? Is it, a genuine need in my life? Is it something God is directing me to, or am I substituting for the real solution? Why am I seeking this relationship outside of my marriage, for example? Why is this person looking so good all of a sudden? Is that because my genuine need is not being met in Christ? You see, the gospel is very, very powerful and enables us to deal with real life issues. To be right with God is truly what matters more than anything else in this life. And the beautiful thing about it is it's not just doable. It's already done. And in so many texts, Paul says, God forbid that I should glory in anything but the cross of Jesus Christ. That is where everything matters. And much of my life I didn't know why the cross was so big deal. But I think I'm beginning to catch a glimpse, and I hope that you are too. When we turn to the very next lecture, we're going to move away from this idea of how you get right with God, and we're going to talk a little bit about that staying right with God, about that growth, about that life change. What is life like when you're walking with God? So we'll connect back with you then.